although Bermuda will have to watch for some gusty winds and heavy rain.
And hurricane season has been quiet so far.
If we have storms form in those areas, they're much more likely to affect land.
Drought conditions are getting worse in many parts of the country.
We need some rain. We don't have any over the next couple of days.
The weather that's impacting this year's apple crop.
We had a nice rainy spring, allowing the trees to grow quickly.
And from a rivalry matchup in Miami to a showdown in the Windy City, we have the weekend football forecast.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Well, good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Eileen Whalen. Well, this morning, teams are assessing the damage in Southern California after widespread thunderstorms set off mudslides and debris flows Thursday night. So take a look at the aftermath in San Bernardino County. The mud came rushing down a hillside, slamming into this home. I mean, you can see the thick layers of mud surrounding it. Look at that and all that damage. Here's an aerial view of another community where you can see clearly the path the mud took. Now, despite all of the damage, fortunately, there are no reports of injuries or deaths. Well, the storms also brought rain to California's Mojave Desert. Less than an inch fell across the region, but that's enough in a desert to trigger flash flooding. It was made even worse because the rain fell over burn scars from recent wildfires. The rain came from what's left of Tropical Storm Mario. A flash flood watch remains in effect through this afternoon. And we continue to track the tropics this morning. Tropical Storm Gabrielle could develop into a hurricane in the coming days, and there's another system in the Atlantic that could form into a named storm. Florida meteorologist Lauren Oleski is tracking them for us.
Check on the tropics for you right now. We've got Tropical Storm Gabrielle. This is not a threat to us. Neither is this other wave with a low development chance there making its way off the coast of Africa right now. We'll get a quick check on the path of Gabrielle. You'll see that cone curving out to sea. No impacts to us, although Bermuda will have to watch for some gusty winds and heavy rain maybe early next week, likely late this weekend and early next week. We could see Gabrielle becoming a Category 1 hurricane maybe early next week too. Next name on the list, Umberto and then Imelda. Hurricane season ends November 30th.
Well, the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season has passed, with no storms making a U.S. landfall. Lee Waldman spoke with officials from the National Hurricane Center to learn more about why things have been so quiet.
We're predicting an above average season once again, 2025 above average.
Despite that ominous warning ahead of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, the United States has avoided landfall from a hurricane so far.
Overall, the activity is at this point lagging sort of climatology a little bit by a couple of named storms and 2 or 3 hurricanes.
Earlier this week, Tropical Storm Gabrielle formed in the central Atlantic Ocean, ending an unusual nearly 3-week stretch with no storms during the peak of hurricane season. It's been a quiet September so far, but director of the National Hurricane Center, Michael Brennan, says we shouldn't let our guard down just yet.
As we get into late September and that focus for activity really does shift farther west, closer to home, which can mean if we have storms form in those areas, they're much more likely to affect land.
Brennan says storms can also form and strengthen in a very short period of time. He reminds people to look at last year as an example with Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Those storms made landfall in late September and early October, respectively.
We had a lot of these similar discussions in 2024. There was a very quiet period in August into early September. And then we got really, really busy and late in the season.
The Atlantic hurricane season ends in November. Brennan urges people to stay alert.
If you have another storm form nearby and make landfall within 3 or 4 days, you don't have a lot of time to get ready. And that's why it's so important to have that hurricane plan in place now.
Well, NOAA expects the La Niña climate pattern to return in the next few months. Meteorologist Vitas Reed looks at how this could impact the remainder of the hurricane season.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Vitas Reed. Want to give you a little update with our hurricane season that we've been seeing out there. It hasn't been super busy, but things may pick up a little bit towards the latter half of the season. There's about a 70% chance of a La Niña season settling up. And what does that mean? Well, the sea surface temperatures for La Niña in the Pacific are below average. So they're in the equatorial area. You're seeing that below average temperature. And when you see that, La Niña hurricane seasons can favor storm development in the Atlantic. So what we see is strong stronger trade winds. They blow warm water away and cooler water upwells from beneath. So that means the water temperature starts cooling. And that means on the other side here in the tropics and the Atlantic, reduced trade winds, less wind shear. That means more storms potentially. So that's something we're going to have to watch closely as we get through the latter half of the hurricane season.
Well, we got our latest look at drought conditions across the United States yesterday. And as you can see, the Rocky Mountains are exceptionally dry with extreme drought conditions stretching from Washington, Idaho, and Montana all the way to Arizona and New Mexico. Now, in the east, drought conditions are getting worse in New England, the Midwest, and the South. And this morning, we're taking a closer look at the growing problems in Ohio and Maine. Here's Portland meteorologist Christian Bridges.
It has been incredibly dry as we wrap up the summer and head into the fall here in Maine. Streams are running at record low levels, wells are running dry, and trees are notably stressed. Looking at last week's drought monitor, much of Maine was in moderate to severe drought with extreme drought introduced in New Hampshire. This week, the drought has continued to worsen. The extreme drought has expanded into Maine with around 6% of the state in that category. Severe drought in the orange shading there has also expanded with nearly 60% of Maine in severe drought, now also including the Portland area and far southern Maine. This is the first time we've seen extreme drought in Maine since 2020, and it's already having an impact not only on rivers, ponds, and wells, but also on the foliage, with color appearing on trees and many trees already dropping their leaves due to drought stress. Drought will likely impact the fall color with an earlier peak in foliage, more patchy peak color, and premature leaf drop. There will still be some areas of great color, though, especially in the more drought-tolerant trees like oaks or maple.
We haven't had any rain across the state for the past week, so we're at 100% of the state is in some sort of drought. 95% of the state is in a moderate drought, which really encapsulates all of central Ohio. Off to our east, we're into a severe drought, so parts of Knox, Licking County, up to Coshocton County, over to Tuscarawas, Guernsey, Noble counties, and we even have extreme drought into the extreme eastern part of the state. So we need some rain. We don't have any over the next couple of days. Does look like we may be able to start to break this drought down a little bit as we get into early next week. We do have a system moving in from the plains, but for right now, the numbers across the state are not good.
Well, this Monday marks the official start of fall. It's called the Autumnal equinox, and meteorologist Evan Chikvara explains what it is and how it impacts our weather.
What the heck is an equinox? Oh, it just simply means equal, and it's talking about daylight. Because of Earth's tilt of 23.5 degrees, as we orbit about the sun, different times of the year, there's more of a concentrated focus of sunlight on different latitudes. Well, twice throughout the orbit, the sunlight is most direct, or is most evenly distributed, I should say, across the northern and southern hemisphere. There will be 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness from north to south pole on the 22nd of the month. So this happens one other time. It's in the spring. It's called the vernal equinox. But unlike in the spring, we are in a cooling process. So if we have the same amount of daylight hours on the equinox in the fall as we do in the spring, why such a significant difference in temperatures? Pretty simple when you start to think about it. We are coming off of some of the longest daylight hours of most direct sunlight of the year. Since really late May into June, we've had direct sunlight. The solstice was the 21st. We have 14 plus hours of daylight in June and July alone. So it's a slow process. The ground is absorbing the sun's energy, it's warming, and there's a delay. Our hottest day of the year is not on the solstice. It's usually 3 to 5, 7 weeks after in July as well as into August. So it's a cumulative process. We do eventually cool off, and we'll see a much more significant change here over the next month or so as that sun angle decreases. That's the height the sun is in the skies. It gets lower and lower. The solar radiation is less and less powerful, and it's a snowball effect as far as cooling.
Well, for all the latest weather news and video, be sure to follow us on social media. We're on all of your favorite platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. Coming up on the National Weather Desk, it's apple season, and we'll head to New York and check in on this year's crop. Plus, we've got tips for keeping your grass green and healthy all year long.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti. We'll look at the northeast. We're tracking some more mild temperatures on the way for our Friday. Afternoon highs should make it into the 70s. What you don't see in that map right there is a stiff northwest wind. That wind will gust over 20 miles per hour. Here we are during the morning hours. Any early morning clouds will start to disappear. Look at all the sunshine by afternoon. Drier air and cooler temperatures start moving in tonight. Grab a sweatshirt by morning. We'll start in the 30s and 40s. Afternoon highs on Saturday should make it back into the 60s.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. A front is approaching as we move through your Friday, likely going to drop temperatures going into the weekend. A mostly dry frontal passage, so just a stray shower possible along it into your Friday evening and Friday night. But otherwise, looking pretty good. Clouds may linger behind it. Very warm out ahead and along the front still. Temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, even 80 degrees, close to that in the mountains. But we will be several degrees cooler, down to the 70s or so on Saturday.
I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl. Afternoon high temperature is seasonable for most of us today in the low 90s and upper and middle 80s. We are going to see showers and storms continue to impact the Florida coastline, particularly the east coast of Florida, thanks to this larger area of showers and storms making its way through the northern part of the area. We are going to see also a frontal boundary increasing rain chances for the afternoon and evening across much of the southeast. Cloud cover expected to pass through the north and west, pushing to the south and east.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A viewer in West Palm Beach, Florida got these pictures of cloud iridescence. Ice crystals are forming at the tops of thunderstorms here, breaking up the sunlight into the colors of the spectrum. A viewer in northern Maine took this photo this morning of the waning crescent moon through some pink cotton candy clouds. And a viewer near Seattle got the moon a few hours later over the morning sunrise.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
Well, apple picking is among the popular activities of fall. So how does the weather affect their appearance? Meteorologist Violet Skybor explains that, along with the conditions in central New York that are influencing this year's crop.
Well, the ideal weather conditions for apples is sunny skies. That produces more apples and more vibrant colors. We don't want cloudy conditions because that mutes the colors and less apples are produced overall. We also want cool conditions. That helps start the budding process in the spring, but also extends the apple picking season into the fall, as the apples will ripen slower than they will when we have hot weather. Plus, hot conditions we don't want because that can actually sunburn the apples and leave brown spots. We also want the right amount of rain. It's tricky because too much can cause fungal disease and rot, and too little, the apples can drop off the trees prematurely. So just the right amount is what's needed. Windy conditions we don't want because that can just downright knock the apples right out of the trees. Now, what did we see this year and how has it led to our apple picking season? We've observed no late spring frost, which means the buds were able to grow without any delays. Plus, we had a nice rainy spring, allowing the trees to grow quickly, and a dry summer, allowing for smaller, more dense, crispy apples. Plus, plenty of sunny days, allowing for a lot of apples to be produced. And we had the 12th warmest summer in 17 days in the 90s. Now, that is bad because it did lead to some premature apple drop. So overall, what are we seeing this year? Apples are smaller than usual, but they're more dense and more flavorful, with less vibrant color, sadly, but less quantity as well.
Well, it's not just apple season, it's also mum season. Meteorologist Audrey Lee shows us how to keep our mums and other fall-friendly plants looking great throughout the season.
Summer flowers are fading, but mums, they're in full bloom. They look great on the porch, but the trick is keeping them alive once the nights get cold. But mums aren't the only option.
We got like rudbeckia, there's kale. Now the kale is very cool because it takes a really hard frost, and as it cools, all these veins in the plant get more vibrant. There's echinacea and like heuchera that will hold up to a frost as well, because the whole idea of the fall planting is that it's cold tolerant.
As the nights get colder, mums and other fall plants can handle a light frost. You can cover them or bring them inside. But the real trick to keeping them alive longer? Watering. Unlike summer flowers, they don't need as much.
As the temperatures cool, we don't need to water that much. So you might only water once or twice a week when it comes to fall plants.
And it's best to buy mums while they're still in bud.
We see them often at the grocery store and stuff, and they're bloomed, fully open. And while they're beautiful, that period that you have them is going to be much shorter.
If you want the best fall plants, shop local. With a little care, mums and other fall plants can keep your yard colorful well into the season.
Well, mums are not the only plant that can flourish during this time of year. Meteorologist Phil DeCastro shows us why this time of year is the best for planting new grass.
You might associate planting season with the spring season, but when it comes to grass, this might be the best time of year for fixing those lawns. And as with anything agricultural, a lot of it comes down to weather.
The temperatures, especially nighttime temperatures, tend to cool down. The soil temperatures are still up, so it helps with that germination of the seed. And also, we tend to get more rain this time of year.
Mike Gazella is an operations manager with Lakeland Lawn Care. He says it's not impossible to plant grass seed in the middle of summer, but it's a lot more work. Hotter weather puts more stress on young grass, which means more watering, which means more work and higher water bills. It's a lot easier to work with nature than against it. And it's not that spring isn't a good time to plant grass seed, but planting now does have a couple advantages.
The crabgrass pre-emergent and the first initial weed control that we put down in May, if you seed that time of year, it'll stop those seeds from germinating. And even if you do have some grass growing, you put down that weed control, it won't be hardy enough to handle the weed control and die off.
Spring weather can also be a little more erratic, so it could take longer for the soil to get warm enough for the grass to germinate. But you don't want to wait too long. Despite some very warm falls in recent years, if you wait past the end of the month, it can be very difficult for the grass to establish it enough to survive our long, cold winters.
Well, when you think of thunderstorms, spring probably comes to mind, but they're still common in fall. But how does thunder get its sound? Meteorologist Sharon Ray explains.
Well, some areas of mid-Missouri did get thunder and lightning yesterday, and some pretty loud thunder, too, that developed. And that is because, of course, the lightning. And as we know, lightning is very hot. It's hotter than the surface of the sun. At least it's estimated to be close to 54,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And when it comes through the atmosphere, of course, it's rapidly heating the air. And as it does that, it's causing the air to cool and contract very quickly. You end up with the lightning bolt going through, heating it up rapidly, and then the air cools and contracts. That causes a sound wave, and that sound wave is actually what we call thunder. That's what we are hearing from that lightning. Now, the sound waves do travel along the lightning bolt and then outward toward our ears. So the closer we are, of course, and we know this, if you see a lightning strike and it hits very close, it can be very loud. The closer the lightning strike, the louder the crack. If it reaches the ground, that's when we hear a loud booming sound. Now, I noticed last night the storms, especially as they were departing, I noticed that we had a lot of rumbles of thunder, and rumbling thunder is caused by several different lightning strokes in the atmosphere that are causing maybe a distance away and those different sound waves getting to our ears. But there's also another factor in this. If we have cooler air at the ground and a warm layer above, we call that an inversion. And those sound waves can get trapped under there and continue to bounce back and forth and cause that rumbling sound.
Well, Monday is the fall equinox, which means temperatures are getting cooler, the days are getting shorter, and soon the leaves will start changing color. This week on our podcast, meteorologist Emily Gracie sat down with the mastermind of an innovative fall foliage forecast tool to get a look at what to expect this year. Here's a preview of that episode.
Right about this time of year, people start to lose their minds. The days are getting shorter, temperatures are cooling off, and out come the sweaters, the seasonal candles, and the pumpkin spice everything. And the icing on the cake? That perfect tour of fall foliage. But for years, those maps showing us what the fall foliage was gonna look like, basically an educated guess. This week, I'm going off the radar with meteorologist Evan Fisher. He's the mastermind behind explorefall.com. We'll find out how this past year's weather is impacting the 2025 fall foliage forecast, how his archive of data can literally show you what fall looked like when you were a kid, and how he turned his leaf tracking network into disaster relief after Hurricane Helene devastated Western North Carolina. The Fall Foliage Forecaster is available now anywhere you get your podcasts.
Time now for a short break, but first we take in views of wild horses in Montana.
Well, good Friday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Phil Kelly. Some much-needed cooler air starting to finally make its way into the Central Plains, upper Midwest. 71 with rain in Minneapolis today, but still very hot in the Ohio Valley. 88 in South Bend, 89 in Columbus. That rain slowly going to make its way off to the east. That will bring cooler temperatures as well as we get into the end of the weekend.
Well, a good Friday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Suchan. Look at our forecast today across the region. We'll see those highs in the 80s and 90s from Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. Could get a couple of showers or thunderstorms. Little Rock heading down into portions of Louisiana. Saturday, mostly a partly sunny day across the region. Can't rule out a few hit or miss showers or thunderstorms. High temperatures on Saturday will be in the 80s and the 90s.
Well, hi there and a good Friday morning to everybody. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. It's the final Friday of summer. It will be sunny and 75 in Seattle. Perfect in the Emerald City and back into the 70s in the city by the bay as well. You can see thunderstorms pushing out past Denver and Albuquerque, but still this ongoing threat of heavy rain thanks to this area of low pressure spinning over the Sierra and back into Vegas. Some flood watches and warnings going to be up at times closer to Palm Springs and into parts of Arizona. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Time now for our Friday football forecast. Here's meteorologist Katie Morgan.
We've got Texas Tech at Utah. This is in Salt Lake. Temperatures look to be good with a 12 p.m. kickoff and mainly sunny skies in Utah. Auburn in town in Norman, Oklahoma, taking on Oklahoma. We're looking at temperatures in the upper 80s. Can't rule out a few thunderstorms here in Norman. And then we head to Miami, a night game going on. Florida in town taking on Miami. Temperatures in the mid 80s at kickoff, and can't rule out a few thunderstorms in Florida, which is usually the case every day. Let's take a look here at our Sunday matchups in the NFL. The Cowboys versus the Bears, that is in Chicago. Will be an afternoon game and can't rule out a couple afternoon thunderstorms. Temperatures comfortable though in the low 70s, upper 80s in Tampa with the Jets taking on the Buccaneers and a few thunderstorms there. Also looking at the Patriots in town, or at home, I should say, against the Steelers. A very comfortable 65 with partly cloudy skies in Massachusetts. All right, that's a look at our football forecast. Hope you're gearing up for a great weekend.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm meteorologist Eileen Whalen. Have a great last Friday of summer, and we will see you back here on the first day of autumn, Monday morning.